We're living for the moment, now we're one with the world. I can't lose this feeling I get. My heart's in the right place, and so is my soul, yeah. I won't take no excuses for it. I want it, love it, need it, live it. I feel like something's missing when I do not have it. I feel it in my bones, gotta find my space. These emotions on my face, taking a toll, I gotta pay it forward. I'll give it all that I can. No matter what, I won't let up. It's in my soul, it's in my blood, and I won't take no for an answer. If it don't hurt me, it makes me stronger. Yeah, no what, I won't let up. It's in my soul, it's in my blood, and I won't take it no more. I won't, baby. Just leave it to me. I know what I need. You'll find if you see. And if you believe, you live and you breathe, you'll find the key. Lifting me, lifting you. Can't go alone, let's do by two. Doing this together, it's me by you. All through the night, all through the night. This is me, this is you. When we get together, we can all pull through. I don't ever wanna stop this groove. Let's get it right. Take it to the Lord, then take it to the grave. Listen to the wise man, tell me what he say. Listen to your heartbeat like it still bleed. A little bit of hope, yeah, it's what we still need. Say a little prayer for the moment. Give what you got, just go in. Can't hold you back if you own it. Live your life like you're chosen. No matter what, I won't let up. It's in my soul, it's in my blood, and I won't take no for an answer. If it don't hurt me, it makes me stronger. Yeah, what, I won't let up. It's in my soul, it's in my blood, and I won't take it no more. I won't, baby. Just leave it to me. I know what I need. You'll find if you see. And if you believe, you live and you breathe, you'll find the key. Know what I need, I know what I need. To find the keys.
Chasing love in an empty bar. Pour a drink till I make it past. The midnight hour seems to come and go, but I know. Walk on up with a drink in hand, sipping mixers cause you can. And all the lights begin to switch off. You're chasing the light, holding on for life, fading out, chasing the light, chasing the light, chasing the holding on for life, feeding the high, chasing the night, chasing the night. Hotel rooms and city squares, champagne bottles, drum and snare. The sights and cities seem to fall away when you stay. Locked in love for a night or two, losing sleep just to get a few. Day to day you wanna stay out, you're chasing the light, holding on for life, feeling the high, chasing the light, chasing the night, chasing the night, chasing the night, holding on for feeling the high, chasing the night, holding on for life, feeling the high, chasing the night, chasing the night.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to the RCI TV YouTube channel for round 1 of the multi-class GT series. My name is Ryan Gill. I'll be your lead commentator and broadcaster for this evening, and I am joined for the first round by Nick Setnick.
Hey, how's everyone doing out there? Here for another mixed multi-class race. This was a exciting format that we got to try out over the weekend and last week, and I'm just happy to be here to broadcast it to all of our viewers.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be fun. The Silverstone race was quite an interesting one indeed that happened not so long ago. But of course, joining us for the first round as well, we've brought in some extra support here. Thanks to our partnership with Race Department, we have Paul Glover.
Good evening, everybody. How you doing? All right. Hello, world. First broadcast on RCI. I've done a few commentary jobs on Race Department. This is my first foray outside of that. So looking forward to broadcast on my first multi-class event.
Well, it's a great event to start with, that's for sure. It's going to be one of the first multi-class series ever in ACC with GT3 and GT4 cars. So, of course, this is going to be quite interesting, and we are here at Misano, the Marco Simoncelli circuit, for the very first round of the championship. So, if we have a look at the leaderboard right now, we're coming towards the end of practice. It does say 26 minutes up at the top. We will be forwarding it in just a few moments' time. We just had a small server issue, and we had to launch them slightly late, but Nick Setnick will ensure that the servers do get forwarded to the correct time. So Mooney leads at the top in the Porsche, followed by Frederich in the Bentley, and then Ossi Takamaki in the number 43 Lamborghini. And I have to say, Nick, there's been some interesting car choices for this championship in the GT3 category.
Yeah, I would have to say there's actually a pretty good mix here. Porsche's taking a little bit of a majority in the GT3 class, as they've been a popular pick for the last few series, actually, with Frederick up in the Bentley, up in currently second place in free practice, just a little bit behind Mooney in that number 11 Porsche. But yeah, I mean, like, we're seeing actually a pretty solid mix all the way through GT3 and then down into GT4. There's also an excellent mix down there. We have one Chevy driven by Billy Octane and that 333 Camaro. And let's see, from what I've seen, actually, this is a pretty solid mix of cars in that class. I'm losing track of where he went, but McCooley's actually switched out to the Mercedes. He was driving he's driving the Ginetta in the Monday Championship, and he was kind of getting a bit of a struggle on Monday, so switching over to the Mercedes, which has proven in the GT4 class to be a solid competitor. So I think he'll be trying that out and seeing how it shakes out for him.
Yeah, we've seen the Mercedes absolutely dominate at Monza with the BMW. Of course, it didn't really work out that way at Paul Ricard on Monday, and of course now we're here at Misano, a very different track to both the likes of Paul Ricard and Monza, so it'd be interesting to see how all the GT3 cars do. Of course, we have some pretty notable names in here as well: James Parker, Vicky Thompson. We also have Mikhail Sundstrom. Obviously, you already mentioned Billy Octane. We've got Ismail Lebrec. He's back as well. Samir Ibrahimi. So we've got plenty of big names in here that everyone should be fairly familiar with. But Paul, as this being your first appearance on RCI, how are you very familiar with a lot of the drivers around the ACC scene, or is this one of the first time you'll be hearing a lot of these names?
No, Ibrahimi is definitely one that I'm particularly familiar with. Seen him in other events that I watch. I do like to watch. I went through a period of watching a lot of esports. So especially over the recent lockdown period that we have. Going back to the point from Nick around it's good to see a Lexus in there, because we don't, you generally don't see many Lexus racing. Like you say, the Porsche tends to be one of the most popular. The Merc does, because it's got a lot of power. With the, around the Monzas, as you say, it tends to perform well in the more tighter tracks. It doesn't get an opportunity to use the power that it's got. I'm an Aston Martin fan, to be honest. I quite like the Aston, so it's good to see a couple of those out there for this event as well, and an Audi as well, and a couple of BMs. So yeah, a really good mix. And like I say, this is my first multi-class event. I only bought the GT4s the last week myself. I've had a bit of sciatica issues with my leg, so I've not actually done any racing for the last month. So I'm a little bit eager to recover and give those cars a try, because from what I've seen, with the cold tyres coming out of the pits, they're a completely different challenge. So and with the GT3s coming through, it'll be this is a tight track here, as you say, so it'll be interesting to see how the GT3s manage the traffic as we get to the later part of the race.
Yeah, and of course, traffic is going to be absolutely crucial for this race. But of course, we are going to move on to qualifying, and you might notice that the time we have for qualifying is a bit strange here, 22 minutes. Well, the reason is because we actually have a bit of a unique qualifying format going on for this championship. So the way it is going to work is that the qualifying is divided into, two separate segments. First of all, we'll have the GT4 cars travelling out onto the circuit. You can see some of them leaving pit lane as we speak. And they will go out for 10 minutes, and they can set as many laps as they can within those 10 minutes. Of course, then the overlap period starts, and they have to finish their flying laps if they started them before their 10 minutes has elapsed. Of course, once they finish, they pull over to the side of the road and they return to the pit lane. Of course, then that means that the GT3 cars in the overlap period can start to work their way out onto the track. And of course, they will then have the remaining 10 minutes of qualifying to set their fast laps as well. So it keeps both of these classes of cars separate in their qualifying, so they're not obstructing each other or slowing each other down. And it means that we can get a nice brief qualifying session for 2 different classes within the same span of time.
Yeah, this is super exciting and a great thing that we got to try. And I think it's just the most fair way to run this qualify. Keep it nice and tight and exciting, but also fair between the 2 classes where everyone can set their laps in confidence. Right now we have the GT4 cars out on the track. They're just getting their warm-up lap in, and they'll be setting their times before they pull back into the pits in about 10 minutes.
Yeah, I think it's like I say, you know, before we went on air, I was saying to the guys that we have the same challenges and other events that we've done at Race Department, so it makes perfect sense to split it and keep it fair, so people aren't treading over each other's toes, because people want to concentrate. They've got enough to worry about with the race and dealing with the slower cars on track, especially for the GT3s, and the GT4s want to be looking ahead rather than behind. So I think it's a great idea and the best way to make it fair for everybody.
Yeah, so of course we're on board with Billy Octane at the moment. He is the first of the GT4 cars out on track in the Camaro. And of course he's got to the end of the first sector. He's coming up towards Kersia at the moment. Nice and late on the brakes. Of course, the Chevy is very quick out of the corners. It does struggle with the top end, but of course straight line speed, not the most important thing at a track like Misano. As he comes towards Curva Tramonto, nice and tight towards the apex. This is a corner that is so difficult to nail, and it's so crucial to your qualifying lap time, as of course it leads on to the main back straights. Kind of a little bit kinks between these, but of course you do carry them flat out. No lifting, no braking here until you get towards the end of the kinks, towards the Curva del Caro here. Nice and tight there. Don't go too wide here or you'll invalidate your lap, and Billy Octane does very well to stay inside the white lines. The Camaro's struggling a bit through some of these tighter corners, but of course these GT4 cars don't really have any troubles over the curbs, so they won't bother him too much. He'll come into the Curva Misano for the first time on his flying lap up towards the line, and he will set a 1:43.857 to set the benchmark for the GT4s.
I imagine he'll go around again, because those tyres exactly won't necessarily be up to temperature even after one lap, right?
No, definitely not, actually.
Really? Okay.
It's an interesting thing with the GT4s. We make a point of mentioning it on the Monday Championship, which is that these cars do not have tyre warmers in the pit lane compared to the GT3s. And of course that means that these cars start on stone cold tyres, and of course that means it takes much longer to warm them up than it does on the GT3 cars. So it usually does take a lap or two to get these cars into their optimal range.
Yeah, okay. Well, we've seen Corley there just go with a 142, so already taken Octane down to third there, and there's already quite a gap there between first and second, so we'll wait for the other cars to go through the start-finish and see what they can set.
Yeah, currently in the GT4 class with a few cars coming across the line, this is looking like a pretty big split of gaps, but as was mentioned, and actually is a great observation, is that because they're running on such cold tires out the gate, they're going to set a pretty safe lap, probably going around the first time, and we probably won't see their flying laps until near the end of their qualifying stints. So this will be interesting to see how that shakes out.
So if this was you, Nick, in these cars, would you be filling up for the whole 10 minutes and then just going out and just keep going around? What would you do?
Well, I mean, the reason I'm in the comms box and not in the driver's seat is because I am definitely a rookie-level driver. So I always use the full extent of qualify to set hopefully at least one valid lap. So that's always my thing, to even survive around the track to make sure that I can get a time up on the board. But just something that I have seen is that from these different drivers that I've gotten to commentate over, is drivers really have a couple different strategies for this. Maybe they'll run out and they have it exactly planned. I'm going to do 1 or 2 warm-up laps, and then that's my flying lap, and that's it. Yeah. There's some people that'll just keep it running for the full time that's given. There's some other people that'll set a time and they're like, nope, that's the fastest that I can possibly go, and they just pull back into the pit lane. So I mean,
on the race, yeah, okay, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So there's a few different strategies even in just qualifying, and I've seen them all work and not work, and it really just depends on the course and how the drivers want to take it.
So James Parker is at the top of qualifying at the moment, 142.111 in the Porsche Cayman. And of course, he is in fact the only Cayman we have here tonight. I do think we have another one in the championship, but of course that driver has signed out for tonight. We did have a few sign-outs before the championship began. Quite a few people not able to make the first round, but fortunately we should have a much more complete grid for Kyalami next week.
So yeah, a few drivers up to the top 10 have set their lap times. So we've got quite a spread there from first, but it's a little bit closer now between Parker and Macaulay, with around about half a second between first and second. Is a 1:42 looking good, do we think?
Well, I mean, I'm excited to see. I mean, we're going to see at least a few more laps come out from these drivers. With only 10 in the GT4 class, I mean, they have plenty of space. I'm actually pretty surprised that there's this much traffic on screen right now. James Parker is going to open up a bit here, currently holding on to.
I think that back marker kind of ruined his line a little bit there, and he unfortunately went. Yeah, you're right. You're right, aren't you? Like, there's only 10 cars on track, so why are they finding each other? I'm guessing that the challenge there, well, he's got different strategies. People are going at different times, so there's always a chance of, as we've got 2 cars currently in the pit, so the other 8 are still out on track. As we're watching Bruno, I don't know how you pronounce that. Do you know the pronunciation of that?
Kadili.
Thank you very much.
Yes, he is. He's one of the South African drivers that we have participating in our leagues. Bruno Kadili, part of the White Rabbit Gaming esports kind of organization and team. Very familiar with some of the South African drivers here because I joined George Smith, one of our commentators here at RCI. I join him occasionally for commentary for the Raceface races, the South African league that was going on recently. So I've become quite familiar with some of these South African drivers over the last couple of months.
So the gap between first and second has come down to just under 300 a second there. So that's a little bit closer now. That's and Mr. Parker's done a 1:41.9, so he's found a bit more time there.
Yeah. Also on the timing board, I'm looking at Michael Springer, who is currently in that 58 Ginetta, is actually up quite a bit on his time. So it looks like he'll be setting something up to push him up into at least past McDude there in the 46 Mercedes, and it should take him right into 8th place based on how this lap is going for him. He's up about 4/10 coming onto the main straight, so he's going to roll across the line, and we'll see that time jump up to 8th position, and that's looking like the time that he will be setting as we're coming closer to the end of the GT4 split for qualify.
Yep, yeah, so we have had 10 minutes of GT4 qualifying elapsed. The timer has run out. Any cars still on a fast lap, valid lap, can still finish their lap time, or the others must pull over and return to the pit lanes. Is it safe to do so? The GT3 cars, however, will start to make their way out on track in just a moment.
Yeah, there's a bit of activity in the pits, I believe, now. So the GT3s are on their way to quite a spread there. But interested to see how the first and second battle in the GT4 class will play out over the course of the race. So there's not much to split really. The top 4. Should be good. I'm looking forward to seeing some GT4 action tonight.
Yeah, definitely. So we're still on board with Michael Springer, who is again up on his time, actually, with Vicky Thompson not doing bad for herself as well in the 394, also up about 1/10. Trying to finish out these laps in the GT4 class, get a little bit more time. Vicky Thompson looking to take over the 735 Chevy driven by Rage in 6th place currently. Springer's going to be crossing the line again and hoping for a little bit of an upgrade on his time, but I don't believe it's going to be enough to move him up past Vicky Thompson. He's going to set that time, and it is not going to be quite enough, so he's going to be locked into 8th place. 8th place for the GT4 class. The GT3 class will be definitely faster than the GT4 class, and we'll see how that shakes out when the GT3s are hitting the track in just a few seconds here. Actually, we're going to be turning over as the GT4 cars are pulling over and returning to the pits, and the GT3s are entering the track for their warm-up laps.
Yep, so the GT4 qualifying over and done with. It will be James Parker on pole for the GT4s by a quarter of a second. And it's going to be interesting to see how all that plays out. Of course, qualifying is only half the battle. You do have to brave the race. And of course, the GT4s were actually talking, or the GT4 drivers, sorry, were actually talking quite a bit about their concerns of tyre wear, because the GT4s use a different compound of tyre compared to the GT3s, and of course that means that the wear rates and of course how the tyres warm up and behave under pressure behaves very differently. So of course a lot of these drivers have not gone beyond 60 minutes before with a set of tyres. They're not entirely sure if one set of tyres will last the 75 minutes that we have for the race here tonight. So that's going to be interesting to see how all of that develops. But of course the GT3 cars are now out on track. They are going to be, well, some of them have already started their flying laps, and of course with a much bigger GT3 field than the GT4s here tonight, the qualifying should be much more active.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. As we're seeing the GT3 cars come around, you were mentioning the talk about tires. I mean, I was actually watching that chat as well. A lot of the drivers were kind of debating that, and there was kind of two answers. It was either you had faith that the tire set would last you the full 75 minutes with just a little bit of saving at the end, or you just take the full hit, the full 30 seconds to get a full set swapped on about halfway through. There is going to be a mandatory pit stop in this race, if I'm not mistaken. So they figure, well, if I need to stop anyway, I might as well take the full tire set and drive in full confidence. And what's funny is the split was made: pro drivers saying, "Oh, you can trust them," and the AM level drivers saying, "No, I don't trust them." So that's just another way to kind of separate the mindset between the top level drivers and the lower level drivers as well.
That's an interesting, I suppose it's like, do you pit, take the 30 seconds, and then expect the tyres to give you that time back? It's not just necessarily about driving with the confidence. It's trying to be a little bit scientific about it and understanding, because I've done events before, not necessarily in ACC, but in another event, and the guy ahead of me didn't pit, and for tyres I did, and I was gaining 2 to 3 seconds a lap on him, but it was a longer race than this. So it'll be interesting to see how that actually plays out. And if you start talking about grip levels on the track after practice, qualifying and race, that's obviously going to have an effect on how much grip the tyres have. But yeah, if they're all in the same camp, then the decision's easy for you, isn't it? But without traction control and ABS on these cars as well, like you have in the GT3s, so that all plays its part.
The GT4s do have traction control and ABS.
Oh, they do?
Yes, they do. It's only the Maserati GT4 that doesn't.
Right, that's right. Okay.
The Maserati GT4 is kind of a bit of an anomaly within GT racing in itself.
Hence why nobody's chosen that car, I'd imagine.
But actually, that kind of does lead us on to a quick point. We are hosting a Maserati event at the Nürburgring fairly soon, actually. That's going to be going on next month in August. I think it's on the 8th or 9th. I'm not entirely sure. I will double check that to confirm later on. But we are running a GT4 Maserati event, so the Maserati Cup at the Nürburgring. It's going to be really, really interesting to see how, a field of those cars, behave with each other. Lots of people love the Porsche Cup because those cars are such a challenge to drive. Well, think the Maseratis are going to be exactly the same, but back to qualifying here for the GT3s, 5 minutes and 30 seconds remaining. It is Raymond Mooney at the top in the Porsche at the moment, Dynamic Motorsport number 11, followed by Samir Ibrahimi and Adrian Probst.
And no surprise to see a Porsche on top, you know, closely followed by another Porsche in third.
Yeah, absolutely. The Porsches in the GT3 class have just been absolutely dominating lately. More loyalists are switching over to the Porsche and saying that is just the most solid choice in GT3 in ACC right now. So that is not surprising at all to see more and more Porsches move their way up the grid. Currently, Mooney in the 11 Porsche, currently still holding on to pole position with that 1:33.237. Interestingly, Ibrahimi and Probst were both tied for third sector, fastest third sector, but that just changed with Probst taking it away from Ibrahimi, moving himself up into second place, just a little bit behind Mooney by just a little over 1/10. Currently on board with Martin Schumacher. It looks like he's going to be a little bit up on his time, actually a lot up on his time right now, 7/10. He's going to be crossing the line, moving himself up into 8th place currently, about a little under 9/10 behind Mooney. And he'll have plenty of time to set a couple more to see what he can do with that BMW.
Yeah, the top three are pretty close there. It's like a 0.02 of a second gap, and then Frederic in fourth, and Tokamaki in fifth, with half a second splitting the top five. That's close, really close.
Yeah, I mean, like there's a lot more confidence I've noticed, switching back and forth between GT3 and GT4. GT4 is still very new to these drivers, even the pro level drivers. I've seen that the GT3 class can just hold on to that consistency, especially when they're in ideal conditions like this. This is a bright sunny day in sim time, early afternoon. So this is pretty much ideal settings for them. So this is something that they've probably run hundreds of times at least, and they can set a lap in full confidence, a little bit more than the GT4 class, only just because of time, honestly.
Yeah, and of course, that will play a significant amount over the season, of course, with the different venues that we're going to and different times that the races will be taking place. Of course, the Misano race today takes place at 4 p.m. sim time. So, of course, that's going to be interesting to see. We'll have a nice evening race. Kyalami next week will actually be a 6 a.m. start sim time, so nice and early in the morning. Silverstone will be midday, 1200 sim time. Zolder will be another evening race, looking at 6 p.m. sim time, and then, of course, Suzuka, which will round out the season, will be starting at 8 sim time. So we'll be going into the dark in Japan at Suzuka. Just over 2 minutes of qualifying left for the GT3s, and it is looking to get closer and closer. And I think it's an interesting point you made, Nick, that some people don't quite have the confidence yet in the GT4 cars, and that could be why we've seen the grid being, so split even amongst the pro drivers. I mean, looking at some of the names, James Parker, Joe McCauley, Bruno Cadilli, Billy Octane, Vicky Thompson, Nicholas Rage, I mean, these are people that are consistently high up in the GT3s in the ICGT Championship, for example.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's definitely not a lack of driver skill. It's just more confidence in the car and just amount of times that you are putting the car around each of these tracks. We've been actually pretty consistently moving around the grid as far as track choices go in the last few events, with our frequent flyers, if you will. So we're constantly trying to push them around the different tracks and see where they have their strengths and weaknesses play out. And they're also kind of in the experimentation stage still for the GT4 cars. There's a lot more switching around. They haven't quite decided on which make they want to stick with long term. Currently on board with Adrian Probst, who is still just not quite keeping up with Mooney, who is still about a little over a tenth ahead of him in that the 11 Porsche, holding on with that 133.237 still. Some names moving around just a little bit. A lot of GT3s are actually have already returned to the pits, it looks like, but there's no one super up on the time. Actually, Probst has actually just grabbed 2/10 in the first sector, so I think he is definitely hungry for pole position, and we're going to be running alongside him to see if he can hold on to that. It actually gets 3/10, so this is turning out to be a very fast lap for him. See if he can hold on to Sector 2. He's actually beating Mooney by at that very critical 1/10 in Sector 3, so he's actually already shown that he's got the speed in Sector 3. So if he can carry this advantage that he's picked up early in this lap, he's going to take pole position from him as we're actually going to tick over. This is the last clean lap that he's going to be able to run. This is his last chance to take pole position, and he's definitely in line to do it. And we'll see how this shakes out in just a moment here.
Yeah, coming into the last sector, he is 2/10 up on his lap. He needs a 1/10.5. And of course, coming into the final corner now, he'll hope to get a good exit. Don't run too wide here, because you can easily invalidate your lap. He'll come up towards the line, and Adrian Probst will go pole by 1/10 of a second over Raymond Mooney. It looks to be an all Porsche front row, unless Samir Ibrahimi can do anything about that, but no, he's going to pull into the pit lane. His day in qualifying is done. Ismail Lebrec in the 67 Lamborghini is up on his time, but he's wide.
He goes wide.
And invalidating that lap will bring qualifying to an end.
How close that top 11 is. All within a second. I was watching Federic because his time was coming down. I thought he was going to find a bit more time, but that's an impressive spread there within a second. So hopefully it's going to mean a great race for us tonight.
Yeah, absolutely. The drivers really showing their pace out there. Probst sneaking into pole position on his last runabout ahead of Mooney, who held onto it in confidence for most of the GT3 split of qualify. But yeah, that is going to be two Porsches on the front of the grid, and we'll see how that shakes out with Ibrahimi and Frederick in the second row in the 49 Audi and 815 Bentley, respectively. Lots of solid times.
Yeah, I think we have to give a shout out to the two Lamborghinis there sitting in 6th and 7th, because it's probably not one of their strongest tracks.
Yeah, I mean, from what I've seen, the Lamborghini, especially in the the Lamborghini in general, it's a picky car. It seems to have a few favorites and some that are just not favorites. But when you can get time out of the Lamborghini, it definitely rewards the drivers. So that's awesome to see them side by side in 6th and 7th place going into the race event today.
Yeah, I think the Lamborghinis will definitely do better at some of the tracks we have coming up. For example, Kyalami is very, very good for the Lamborghini. It's a track that it does really like, and obviously they'll be hoping for dry weather as well. There was a hint of rain in the air coming into this race, but it does not seem to have arrived. Of course, we do have dynamic weather on, so there is always the possibility of changing weather later on during the race. But now we are here on the grid, and we are less than 5 minutes away for the start of the formation lap.
So do you guys do predictions on RCI, or do you try and stay away from that?
Our favourite game, Paul, is to try and predict who's going to win the race. So, well, you seem quite eager to get your word in. So I'll let you go first, Paul.
Well, I mean, the Porsches just look another level, don't they? But yeah, Ibrahimi is a man that I like, so I'm hoping he's going to shake up the apple cart just a little bit. So he's my choice for tonight.
Okay, so Paul Glover going for Samir Ibrahimi in the 49 Audi. Nick, of course, I'm going to go to you now. Obviously, you've got a fair bit of experience with watching quite a few of these names now. Who's on your pick list for tonight for GT3?
Well, we actually had the opportunity to talk about the Lamborghinis for just a moment. There's actually no Ferraris on the line today. Usually that would be my go-to, but I'm not seeing any on the line. That's actually really interesting. So I think I'm going to have to go to Lebrec. I mean, he's someone who sets a lot of impressive times, and he's driving the Lamborghini, which would be my second pick for car. So I think we're going to see something pull out of Lebrec here.
Okay.
Okay, so we have Audi and Lamborghini as two of the first picks. Now, of course, I would, under normal circumstances, choose the Lamborghini, but of course, Nick has stolen that pick from me. How dare you? My favourite manufacturer, stolen from right underneath my nose. So I'm gonna have to go for a backup, and I'm gonna go for a very left field pick here. I'm going to go for the BMW number 33 of Martin Schumacher down in 11th. I think he might be a surprise pick today. Of course, I've seen him race before here around RCI. He does tend to do better in the race than he does in qualifying. And of course, with 75 minutes on the clock for the race today, it's going to be more about who can get the most out of a longer than usual race. But moving down to the GT4s, I'm going to throw it back to Nick real quick. For the GT4s, who stands out for you today?
Well, from the Monday Championship, McCooley has been an excellent competitor. He dastardly chose the Ginetta, which is kind of the underdog, I would say, in the GT4 class. So I always have respect for the underdog. I think McCooley is going to pull out a win in the GT4 class today.
All right, so Nick going for Joe McCauley, his man of the hour, and of course Paul. Who are you looking at in the GT3 or GT4 field? Sorry.
Yeah, that's okay. I'm gonna have to go for the man that just sort of set the pack alight in the GT4s by quite some margin. I'm going to go with Mr. Parker from the Coach Dave Academy. All
right, so James Parker for Coach Dave Academy, of course, drives for Darragh Perel's coaching organisation, and well, who's my pick going to be? Well, there are a few names that I do recognise on the field here, very familiar with the likes of Billy Octane and Vicky Thompson. But of course, I've got to do George proud. I know exactly what he's like. He's competitive and he is extremely fast. And of course, he does drive for White Rabbit Gaming. I'm going to go for Bruno Cadilli in the 788 Aston Martin. He's got real good pace in the race. His qualifying is not always the best. He does get some strong results in qualifying, but they're not always right at the front of the grid. But of course, with a bit of a smaller GT4 field here today, I think he's earned himself a good pick there, starting in third. And I think he's definitely going to be one to push the likes of McCauley and Parker. We are 15 seconds away for the start of the formation lap. The multi-class GT series set to go underway. And it will be propsed in the number 1 Porsche for AP Racing, who will pull them away for the start of the warm-up lap.
Yeah, so I mean,
the engines, yeah.
Oh yeah,
Sorry.
the mix of GT3 and GT4. This is a fantastic soundtrack for us as we're pulling out into the formation lap. I will say that I'm excited to see a multi-class race at this track because Misano is it's a shorter, tighter track. So with a multi-class race where a lot of the strategy is, if you're one of the GT3 drivers, you have to be dodging a lot more traffic than you're used to. And I think that's going to play in a lot in this, in a course like this, these tighter corners, these straightaways aren't as forgiving as some other tracks can be. So the passing sectors are going to be small and tight, and the GT3 cars are going to have to make those decisions quickly if they want to hold on to their positions and not get caught up in traffic going into any of the kinks or sectors at the ends of the track.
Yeah, I think it's also important that when you're dealing with back markers, remembering that it takes two to tango, doesn't it? So it takes sometimes the GT3s or the faster cars, whatever class they may be in whatever sim you're racing in, have to show a little bit of patience, and also that the slower class needs to, have a bit of respect as well. So respect on both sides is needed to make it work. And sometimes, the fastest cars can make the lunge where the slower car isn't necessarily expecting that lunge to come, and can ruin both races. And it's just sometimes a little bit of caution is needed from all parties, really, and an awareness and keeping it clean, and for the slower class to, in this case the GT4s here, to not ignore the blue flags, because that just makes faster drivers a little bit angry.
Yeah, absolutely. The blue flags are especially important always, but especially when you have two classes on the track, when you cannot hold that kind of pace with the faster class. So, obviously they need to stick with that, stay professional while they're coming around the track. We're actually going side by side, 2 by 2, pulling up to the line, and we'll be seeing green in just a moment here.
Yeah, so here they come into the final couple of corners, lined up in a 2 by 2 formation. The GT4s, you can see there just at the back of the field. Adrian Probst will lead them around the final corner to get the first race of the Multiclass GT Series underway. We'll be heading to Kyalami next week for a 75-minute race, but we are here at Misano to kick off the season. It is 4:08 in the evening. They come up towards the line now. Two Porsches on the front row. It is green for the start of the season, and Probst will get a much better start than Mooney off into turn 1, but Mooney will have the inside line as they come through the first sequence of corners, and the Dynamic Motorsport Porsche number 11 takes the lead going through turn 3.
Yeah, this is an absolutely fantastic start for Mooney. He was not happy about losing pole position. Actually, the Bentley's going to spin around in the 815. Frederick has lost in that corner, causing a bit of traffic. Actually, both Bentleys went around in that corner. So we're jumping back to the leaders. Adrian Probst is currently in second place behind... Oh my gosh, everything just freaked out for me. So Mooney actually grabbing an impressive amount of ground, just getting a fantastic start, and we'll see how Probst takes that as they're going to come around this corner, and just maintaining that distance and separating themselves from the pack behind them after a little bit of drama back there, and we'll see how those two Porsches can just dominate this particular field. Jumping back to the GT4 pack, James Parker leading the way back over there, also in his Porsche. So Porsches being the star feature of lap 1 here.
Yes, I'd just like to point out that Takamaki is now last in the field. I think he might have caused that incident, but he waited for Lemke, is it, to get past him and then carried on his way. So I was watching what was happening behind, and at the start, the GT4s, where the GT3s kind of bunched up into the first corner, they managed to keep it clean and avoid any kind of collision. So some great driving to be seen there. So great stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. The professionalism always shines through, especially in the pro split. You see that Bentley trying to pull back up into the GT3 class ahead of him, past the GT4 pack that is still all together currently.
We got Svensson in the pits as well. I don't know what's happened there from car number 900 for nearly on pace, and he's now leaving the pits. I don't know if he got some damage and is getting the car repaired, but he's on his way back out.
Yeah, it looks like we had a few little incidents in the lap 1. Again, Misano, tighter track than these cars might be used to in other courses. So those little mistakes in the corners could cost you in lap 1. So we'll hopefully those shake out and they can still continue the race.
Lindholm and Zero going side by side here, the Mercedes and the Lexus. level on pace, it seems, at the moment, but the Lexus will maintain position as we come in towards the hairpin. The Mercedes is going to try and go around the outside. He'll have the inside line for the next corner, and he is going to take advantage of the situation. He is going to slip back through, but the Lexus has such good pace through the corners. Side by side, these two have been for 3-4 corners. Now the BMW behind of Martin Schumacher, told you to keep an eye on him. He's up to 7th. He's looking interested as well, as the Audi of Hartkamper is on their tail. A few of the GT3 cars already having to work their way through the GT4 field, of course, due to that opening lap incident, so they're having to deal with traffic from the get-go. And of course that's going to mix up the GT4 field a bit, because they're not going to be, well, they probably weren't expecting to have to let some GT3 cars through already.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
No, sorry, it's playing into that strategy, something that they have to be aware of for the full 75 minutes, that traffic can happen at any time, especially if there is an incident like that that's going to get the packs mixed up a little bit. Expecting to be safe for the first several laps might have been a naive choice, but we'll see that kind of traffic shake out. We're currently following Hartkamper, who's holding down 8th position. Looking at the back of Martin Schumacher coming down the back straight here. Shaking out to a pretty nice train here. So we'll be seeing how that shakes out. Jumping back to Vicky Thompson in the 394 BMW in the GT4 class. Billy Octane taking the inside corner is looking like to gain that ground, but Vicky Thompson gets an excellent launch out of that corner and is going to tuck in behind Billy Octane as they pull onto the straight as well.
And I can see that car number 43, Takamaki's had a 5-second penalty applied to him there. I imagine that's probably to do with the first lap incident.
Yes, it is. We do have live stewards here today, of course, to look over all of the incidents and apply penalties as necessary. Of course, Ossi Takamaki judged to be the guilty party involved in that lap 1 accident, but of course, giving the position back, he has decreased the penalty that he would have received. Usually, taking out a competitor, we're looking at about 15-second penalty, depending on, amount of damage and time lost for the car that you have had contact with. But of course, waiting to let that car back through has meant that his penalty has been lessened severely. So only a 5-second penalty for Takamaki to add on to the end of his race. He's going to get his head down now and focus forward.
Well, I mean, you say that, but he's stuck behind car number 379. So the gap. I mean, while they were going back through the GT4 field, the gap was a little bit larger. But now they've kind of got free of that. He's able to get onto the back of the Bentley. So I think he'll probably be thinking of a pass as soon as we're looking at Marcus Schumacher in the BMW. Having a solid race. I think your prediction might be coming true, but obviously it's still early days. We've still got an hour and 8 minutes to go.
Yeah, the BMW, very interesting pick, especially for the calendar that we have here. It's not a car that we're used to seeing, but of course we do have a few of them on the grid in the GT3 class, and it's always nice to see some of the less used cars out on the grid, and Martin Schumacher is of course going to make the most of the power that is underneath that car. It is Mooney that leads in the number 11 Dynamic Motorsport Porsche. He took the lead from Probst coming through turn 3. He has maintained that lead. It is now a half-a-second gap, but of course keeping each other honest as well. Having said that, I did say to watch out for Bruno Cadilli, the South African in the Aston Martin GT4. He's keeping James Parker honest right now, only 4/10 between those two.
Yeah, a lot of close kind of shakeouts happening on the track right now. Nothing too crazy going on other than that, but these pairings are going to shake out to be battles for position.
We've got a close. Billy Octane's just taken the position from Thompson, I believe, in the BMW. So a bit of action lower down in the GT4s. A great move into the first corner.
Excellent stuff. Yeah. So we're still on the back of James Parker, who's trying to grab a little bit of ground ahead of Dealey, and that's going to work out for him as he had an excellent launch onto that straight. But Dealey is going to try to get a little bit of a late break and grab some ground. but looks like he's going to have to wait a couple more corners for an opportunity to open up here, as that cushion room is fluctuating a bit, with James Parker holding Kadili at bay.
Thing is, around these kind of tracks is that I'm sure you find it. I put myself in the AM class rather than the pros. I've got better over the years, but you know, you have certain cars will be faster. So as Kadili is right on the back of Parker now, as we come into the heavy braking zone. No, doesn't. You know, very wise there. Doesn't make, not making a move that's unnecessary. Not trying to force it. Just following that car, learning the paths that he takes, trying to look for those gaps and potentially, you know, putting Parker under pressure as they come into the final corner. You know, maybe get into the slipstream here and making a move into the first, perhaps.
Bruno Kadili, very composed driver, of course, seen him plenty of times in some of the South African leagues. He's going to come into turn one side by side with James Parker on the outside. Not quite going to have the speed or the stability to go side by side though with the Porsche. He will back off, and just sizing up the Cayman here.
Yeah, definitely. I would argue that he might have a little bit more speed in the straights, but with Misano being this tight and technical around these corners, the Porsche just seems to have just a little bit of kick out of the corners. You see here, the Cayman pulling away just a little bit. Jumping back over to Martin Schumacher, who is still under fire from Hartkamper in the 110 Audi, and is still looking for that opening move, and you can see the difference in strategy between GT3 and GT4. GT3 cars are just big and bulky in comparison, so that window's got to be a lot bigger, you know, and it's a little bit easier to shake up on the defense. Martin Schumacher actually was able to lose Hartkamper a little bit to some GT4 traffic. The back of the GT4 grid shaken out there, so that was just some excellent timing by Schumacher on the defense.
The worst possible place to as you come into a corner to approach a back marker, because as I see that Sundstrom in the BMW car 899 is in the pits, has just gone into the pits. But yeah, kind of the worst place there possible to reach a back marker, because you're braking, and gave Mr. Schumacher an advantage there, but that gap has already started to close back up.
And Schumacher, of course, will be hoping that he can maybe use the traffic to his advantage again in the future. Obviously, that was Svensson's Alpine that they caught there. He was one of the cars that pitted very early on. I think it was on the first lap even, so of course they've caught him much quicker than they usually would for the rest of the GT4 field.
Yeah, so Sundstrom, as I mentioned, is now exiting the pits, so he'll be coming back out. So again, don't know the reason behind that, but
actually, I did have an update on that. Just got a post in from our live stewards. Looks like Sundstrom actually got hit with a drive-through for a takeout. He did a takeout on the 379 driven by Lemke. So he just pulled in and served that.
Oh, we've got some action here, because the McLaren of Ulrich using the traffic of Svensson's Alpine to his advantage. He's made his way past Pedrozzini in the number 3 Audi. Just going to see if we can get a quick replay of that here. So, of course, Pedrozzini now being caught by Ulrich, and you can see the Alpine just in front there, tries to get out of the way. The Audi doesn't catch quick enough. Obviously, the Alpine goes back in to take the corner. And of course the McLaren, ever the opportunist, manages to take the position rather comfortably. And unfortunately, that's just one of the unlucky situations that you get in multi-class racing sometimes.
Yeah, this Alpine's actually getting a lot of screen time just as being the token back marker, shaking up the race splits for the GT3 class. And it just adding that extra layer of strategy, the extra gymnastics that the GT3 cars have to do to get around the GT4 backmarkers.
So, Nick, you mentioned the drive-through for car 899. You're actually serving that now. So it hadn't come on screen, but as you mentioned it came on screen. I think he must have been actually doing a I don't know if he's been given a second one, or I'm not following what the stewards are telling you. But
I think what's happened, Paul, is obviously Sundstrom's come in to serve his one mandatory pit stop, because of course every driver here has to serve a mandatory pit stop where they must take a minimum of 1 litre of fuel. As we can see, the likes of Hartkamper, who has got past Martin Schumacher trying to take the place back now, and of course that's inviting Harry Conway and Marco Ripper into the battle as well. But Mikael Sundstrom probably trying to get his mandatory pit stop out of the way. Just unlucky for him, really, that he's also received a drive-through moments later, and of course he has now gone through and cleared that drive-through penalty. But of course all of these cars still yet to serve a mandatory pit stop. You can see the amber box with a number 1 next to their number. That of course means they are still required to do 1 pit stop. If they have served their pit stop, it will go green, as you can see on Stefan Lemke's Bentley down there, the 379 in 21st.
Yeah, so it sounded like it was just a shakeout of a bad timing, getting the news of the drive-through from the stewards just a little bit too late, deciding to get a little bit of fix repaired in the pit lane and serve that pit stop. So looks like that's just going to be some unfortunate timing. Jumping back over to Ibrahimi, who's currently holding on to the back of Probst here, looking to shake his way up into the top 2 here. But I mean, there's a lot of space to be had here. As they're going to start pulling into the GT4 pack, a lot of that strategy is going to shake out here, where they can kind of position themselves and open up that space. So
here's that GT4 pack you just mentioned as well. So here it is, right on cue.
Yep, and we're coming over to here. So the 3 of them are actually going to get the full stack and at the fight their way through the GT4 pack, and just we're going to see this in full action of how much this has to add to their strategy.
Yeah, and of course, this is only 15 minutes into the race, remember. Of course, we do still have an hour to go. So they're going to be lapping these cars a few more times throughout the course of the race. So they're going to get very familiar with these GT4 cars. And of course, they're also going to get fairly familiar with people who are maybe not so keen to move out of the way in a hurry.
Yeah, before this pack had reached the GT4s, I was watching the timing gaps between Mooney and Prost, and saw it about half a second, and now it's at a second. So Mooney is putting away, but Nen's just gained hundreds of a second. So, like you say, still an hour to go. And also, just draw your attention to car number 21.
I don't mean to interrupt you there, Paul, but Samir Brahimi has gone up the inside of Probst, and he has taken second place from the number 1 Porsche. And the Audi driver has managed to work his way up into second place. He'll now have Moody in his sights. But back to you, Paul.
That's okay. My prediction's looking pretty strong. We've just had a driver drop from the event, I believe. I was watching him. He was in the pits. He was in the pits for quite some time, and I've just completely forgotten who that person's name was now. So, but yeah, Ibrahimi, come on. He's my prediction for the win tonight. So, a great move there to take second place.
Yeah, absolutely a screaming pass there. Found the momentum and found the inside corner and just played it just right to get that kind of momentum and take second place out from under Probst, who's been finding the back of Mooney for quite a while here. So now he's got his sights locked on Mooney just ahead, he's gaining on quite a bit here, just working the way past Vicky Thompson, feeling a little bit claustrophobic coming into that corner with a bunch of GT4 cars on the outside. But this is going to be them opening up, getting past that traffic, and now he has clear sights ahead to try to get some ground on Mooney up ahead. And
that gap is closing. I don't know if it's probably because of the back markers, but it's now to just over half a second. So that second is getting smaller and smaller. So it's getting very, very tight in other parts of the track as the other GT3 cars are now also catching the GT4s by the looks of it. So fun and games. I can imagine that's really fun around here.
Drive-through penalty for Vicky Thompson. The 394 BMW M4 GT4 has received a drive-through for track limit. So Vicky Thompson, just over 15 minutes in, she's already earned herself a drive-through penalty for track limits. She's now got to drive another 57.5 minutes, hoping not to pick up any more track cuts, or she could be facing a stop-and-go penalty from the server here tonight, so Vicky's got her work well and truly cut out for her, as you do say, Paul. The rest of the field catching the GT4s now, and of course, we can now see the lead trio here catching the lead duo in GT4, and Bruno Cadili still very much keeping James Parker on his toes.
Yeah, absolutely. This is an excellent shot of basically the status of the race, pulling into the same corner at the same time. A bit of a nail biter there as they had to grab the brakes full speed there. This is going to be the opportunity. They're going to try to weave in between. This is the kind of action you only see in a multi-class race. The top three in GT3 and the top two in GT4 all together here, weaving in and out of each other. That is some excellent action that we got to catch on screen, and just kind of a photo op moment there. As the GT3s are going to pull away, Ibrahimi still gaining on Mooney up ahead. He's going to get a huge launch on him coming into this next corner. He's holding that pace, and Ibrahimi is definitely hungry for first position, with Probst not too far behind him. So this could shake out to be anybody's takeover at the moment as they pull on to the main straight here out of the last corner.
Yeah, I thought at one point there, I thought Prost was going to lose out a little bit with the back markers, but he didn't, to my surprise. So he's kept right on the back of the Audi there. So really impressive. Because I thought there was just the GT4 just in the wrong place at the wrong moment for him. It was Ibrahimi there, just loses the rear end a little bit, and Prost is just sort of gained on him there when he lost that. So interesting battle developing for this top three. It's very, very close at the moment, and I can't believe we've still got 55 minutes to go. And yeah, interesting indeed, as we're now watching Justin Hartkemper still on the back of Martin Schumacher, which is just these guys are probably sick and tired of each other already.
Yeah, exactly. They've been fighting it out, and looks like Hartkemper actually had the launch on that particular straight. They're going to go side by side. And looks like that he's going to have the inside corner and is going to try to force Martin Schumacher out, who can not defend from that position. It's going to be an inside take. Still side by side, holding that pace, going to go into the next one. Schumacher's going to have the inside corner, but Hartkemper still kind of has the pace even on the outside, but Schumacher can get back on the defensive, and looks like he's going to tuck in just a slight tap there. Nothing too serious. He's going to tuck back in behind. But still has the pace, trying to hold on to that slipstream. Takes the kink, really deep cut through the kink, through the next one, and Schumacher pulling away in that BMW. Excellent pace had by him coming into the next corner. Hartkemper's tucks back in behind. This battle is raging.
To be honest with you, I thought at one point Schumacher had gone a little bit too wide, and surprised that he had the traction and was actually able to get back alongside him. So yeah, really impressive there, and some great driving from both, and some great respect shown there as well, which is really great to see. As we look now at car number 815, Davey Frederick, who's currently chasing down car 665, and that's Ribber as he goes on the inside. Now he's on the outside and following him right behind, but unable to make that move there. But again, some great driving all across the field. Some, like good battles, but also respectful at the same time.
Yeah, I think a lot of these guys realised that with this being a bit longer than the usual 60-minute sprint race, they're going to have to be a lot more careful, especially with how kind of close the field does seem to be, and of course, with the limited number of races that we have here, obviously everyone's going to be fighting for position, and Frederick is going to be having the pace out of the hairpin to take the place from Marco Ripper in the Mercedes. So Frederick up into 10th now in the GT3 classes. These guys are now starting to lap the GT4 leaders. Bruno Cadili probably fed up of seeing GT3 cars that he has to move out of the way for, because he wants to keep on the back of James Parker, but this is not where James Parker wants to be caught by a GT3 car. And he still has the likes of Marco Ripper behind him, and that's going to compromise him coming into the hairpin. And of course, Bruno Cadili is going to be very grateful that the gap has managed to be closed back up.
It definitely looked like they might have touched there, but that was very close. But yeah, what Marco Ripper there, he lost the position because the rear end had a little bit of a moment, and he just lost momentum coming out of that corner.
Absolutely. With the level of skill in these drivers, we've seen that even the slightest mistake, the rear end going kicked out just a little bit, will cost them a position. So that is something that they have to be very, very careful about, especially when they're dealing with back markers in the back there.
Yeah, and just to point out that the battle in the top two drivers, again, it's getting back up to about a second. So Mooney again stretching his legs. So it might have been because they're coming through the GT4 field that was what allowed Ibrahim to kind of get that gap down a little bit. As we are now looking again at Martin Schumacher, who's currently in 8th in the GC Racing car number 33. And he's still, and he's got Hart Kemper ahead of him. I don't think the live timing has updated.
Yeah, it looks like Hart Kemper has overtaken Schumacher again.
Yeah.
And this battle just keeps going back and forth. That Audi having impressive pace ahead of Schumacher, but Schumacher's not going to let that rest too much. But he's got a lot of traffic behind him, actually. Harry Conway and Frederick have caught up to this, and now this is going to be looking like a 4-way battle stacking up here.
Yes, we've got Harry Conway and David Frederick not far behind Mr. Schumacher. So yeah, great kind of 3-4-way battle. I'm sure Mr. Hart Kemper will be trying to gap Martin Schumacher as best as he can, because he's probably aware that he's got 2 cars behind him too. So yeah, great little battle out on track.
Yeah, and then just a update out of the stewards box, actually. Car number 21, Zeman, was actually that car that you pointed out, Paul.
Yep.
Looks like they've actually retired from the race. They were going to receive a penalty for takeout on 221 Joseph Varga, who is currently holding on the bottom of the GT4 pack currently. But looks like he has decided to retire from the race and just cut his losses.
Not a great start to round 1 to retire, but many more races to go, as the gap between first and second in the GT3 class is a little bit closer. But as we look again, we're still looking at the GT4 battle, which again, there's like no time between them at all, and the Aston looks better on the brakes to me. I don't know if that's just because, you know, you're braking into a corner and then obviously the gap shrinks anyway because you're naturally in a braking zone, but that Aston has got some real speed about it, and we've also got a GT3 that's made a move past them not long before, so I don't know if that's allowed them to kind of get closer out on track, as they got another GT3 car behind one of the Porsches.
Yeah, it looks like that's going to actually Cataly grabbing a little bit of sand there to let the GT3 car pass. So that's going to break up this fight here and allow Parker to get some distance ahead of him. That GT3 car kind of holding on to the center. He's going to tuck back in between them before the main straight here, and increasing that gap. So again, this is shaken out for the GT3 cars, can kind of puncture these fights between the GT4 cars. And based on their timing, it could benefit either one of them. So really, it's just kind of up to chance on who has the pace and where they are located on the track when that pass is about to occur.
Yeah, so there is a battle between 10th and 9th. Oh, yes, it's on the stream now. So Frederich there has taken 9th position. Great move on the inside. I was watching that develop on my own stream, as they've got again, the GT4s are making things rather interesting for these GT3 battles. And it's about, like I said before, it's about each class showing respect and trying not to get into each other's way, but it takes 2 to make these things work. Or 4 in some cases, as we're seeing.
Yeah, for sure. 48 minutes left of the race. My word, the first 27 have gone by really, really quick here, but we're not at the halfway point yet. We'll be approaching it in not too long, and of course, still quite a few pit stops left for the entire field to do. Bruno Cadilli still keeping James Parker honest, and of course Samir Brahimi only 9/10 of a second behind Mooney, so of course the lead battle still very close here. But of course we're watching Frederick at the moment in the 815 Bentley. The Bentley flying here at the moment. And of course, he's now looking to get past the big M6 of Schumacher.
As they just and there's contact between car number 27 Joe McCauley and the man lapping him, which was Harry Conway. So one of the GT4s unfortunately causing a little bit of an issue back there, but and I guess that's going to happen in these multi-class events as Mr. Conway is having a look at, Mr. Fredericks is having a look on Mr. Schumacher again. So these guys are battling now as Mr. Hartkemper has managed to get away from this gap. So he's gapped Mr. Schumacher, and so car 815 Fredericks is all over the back of the BMW of Martin Schumacher.
Yeah, interesting. Hartkemper pulling, trying to pull away, but Fredericks looking for the inside, but Schumacher is back on the defensive. Still, just again under fire, trying to fight for that position, with Hartkemper pulling away from him. So this is Schumacher back on the defensive, not wanting that Bentley to go through, even though the Bentley is showing incredible pace around this track. Frederick putting a lot of pressure on Schumacher, and we'll see in the next lap or so here how this shakes out. Harry Conway in the back there trying to hold on to this fight, but it's just between these two right now, as Hartkemper has healthily pulled away and has gotten away from this little scrap here. Again, looking for the inside, looking for a window. Any kind of opening is going to be here. This is actually going to be a huge push here. Schumacher being pushed super wide, even though he's got the inside on the end. This is a ton of pace coming out of Frederick. Had to grab a little bit of ground. Actually, there's going to be a lot of contact. They're 3 wide coming down the back straight. This is a huge push from Harry Conway, looking for an opportunity. They're actually going to be a more contact as we push super wide. And Conway actually winning out in that scrap there, looking for the opportunity and took it, and now he has won out and took the position. This battle is definitely staying heated, going back onto the back straight here, and shaking out Frederick, losing a lot of speed on that particular corner, and we'll see how he shakes out into the kinks, but Harry Conway with a huge double overtake there. Massive respect for Harry Conway to put that car in an opportunistic position where a lot of people would not have made a move like that, going 3 wide into the hairpin. And he reaps the benefits of that. He's managed to jump not only the Bentley that passed him a lap ago, but he's also managed to get ahead of the BMW, now looking to stretch a gap as well. So Harry Conway in the 28 Porsche making the most of some good opportunities, and unfortunately for Frederick, he is now not only behind the Porsche of Harry Conway again, but he's still behind the 33 BMW. Yeah, and before the start of that lap, Hartkemper was 3 seconds ahead of 8th position. He now finds himself 5 seconds ahead. So that battling there has done Hartkemper, the car 1110 in the Audi, some benefits. But yeah, Ibrahimi there is catching our lead man Mooney. So the Audi car 49 is catching the Porsche car 11, which is great to see, because I'm hoping my prediction's going to come true. Yeah, absolutely. This grid is shaking up more and more. This race is proving to stay interesting, and nobody is running away with any wins in either split. We see Ibrahimi catching up to Mooney with Probst not too far behind. This is actually going to be a full 3-stack in just a moment here, pulling onto the main straight, and this is going to be another heated battle going into lap 20 here, as Mooney is currently leading the way, but that could change at any moment. Ibrahimi looking for that opportunity, tucking in to these corners and trying to find that pace. The Audis have proven to hold a lot of pace into these corners, especially over the Porsches. The Porsches have a solid pace, but the Audis just can stay so consistent around this track. So Ibrahimi is going to be trying to use that on this straightaway here. Mooney looks like got hit a excellent launch out of there and is going to try to keep that distance, but in the distance, oh no, here we go. We have a lot of traffic to catch up to, with a couple GT4 cars and GT3s as back markers. So this will be a lot of traffic coming up into the next few corners, and we'll see how that shakes out for their strategies.
So I just want to point out that something's happened. So Conway's dropped down to 12. I don't know what's happened there. We haven't seen that on the stream, but also Frederick has got past Schumacher. So a bit of action back up the field. I don't really, because obviously Conway made that amazing move as though two were battling. Something's obviously happened. He's fallen back to 12. He's now in the pits.
Yeah,
actually just want to...
Yeah, sorry, go ahead, Nick.
Yeah, this looks like I jumped to it. Harry Conway just pulling in for his pit stop. Decided that there was probably just a lot of heat there and just kind of pulled out of it. Looks like it was just him just deciding to pit about with 41 minutes to go.
I actually think he pulled out of it a lot sooner than that. I think it's been a while since he fell back. So I don't know if it's because of the pits he's fallen back to 12 because he wasn't in the pits at that particular moment. But I wonder if he spun perhaps. But anyway, so yeah, shame really, because that was an amazing move that we saw on stream as Ibrahimi is on the back of Mr. Mooney, and but also he's under a bit of pressure from Prost there in the Porsche number 1.
Hartkamper is on the move as well. We saw him tussling with Martin Schumacher for quite a while to get past the BMW. Well, he did finally get away, and he's of course now looking to pressure the Lexus of Stefan Zero. And of course he's going to be looking to move into the top 5 with this as well. But of course the Lexus will put up a good fight here. Looking at the gaps at the moment, Samir Ibrahimi still 7/10 off of Mooney, Props just 3/10 behind that. And of course, James Parker and Bruno Cadilli still under a second between those two drivers. So to me, it's kind of looking like the mandatory pit stop is probably going to be the first place we see people getting any significant gains. If people can hit their pit stop markers properly, are they going to lose or gain any time in the pit stops? That's going to be where I think these races are mostly going to be won or lost, as we can see the 303 BMW M4 GT4 of Jeroen Remmers pick up a drive-through penalty for track limits.
Yeah, I've also noticed that when the cars have got past Martin Schumacher, they found a lot more pace and are leaving him in their dust. So Frederick again got past him a couple of laps ago and has already gained over 3 seconds on him.
Yeah, the BMW driven by Schumacher, I mean, he's a excellently skilled driver. When he's on the defensive, it looks like he can hold them back, but the BMW just not holding pace compared to the likes of the Audi and the Bentleys. So that is a interesting development around this track. We're still on board with Hartkamper in his Audi, looking at the back of the 42 Lexus driven by Zero. Who has kind of kept his nose clean this entire race, just kind of holding on to 5th position with a lot of action kind of happening ahead of him and behind him. But Hartkamper is going to be bringing the heat to him as he's going to be looking for an opportunity to pull into the top 5. Hartkamper holding incredible pace, and I would not be surprised to see this shake out in the next few corners here. Trying to just really push the limits of the track in that GT3 car, looking for an opportunity. Is going to tuck back behind a little bit here, but is going to get an excellent launch out of this corner, trying to grab that streamline off the back of the Lexus, and we will see how this shakes out past the kinks into Sector 3. Again, I think Hartkamper has just been able to push the inner and outer limits of the track, and really done that to slingshot him and keep that momentum rolling in that Audi, which has been holding on to it a lot truer than possibly some of the other makes. But yeah, Hartkamper really playing to the track, and that pace is just showing as he gains positions here.
Yeah, so it looks like my prediction, something's happened to Conway because he's now just been given a 5-second penalty. So looks like something has happened there, which might explain why he fell back as he did.
I can actually see from the stewarding report, because obviously the live stewards do give us some small updates throughout the race. Car number 28, which is the car of Harry Conway, 5-second penalty for pushing car 18 wide. Moderate contact was noted there by the steward. So I'm looking down car 18.
Macaulay down on the...
Yes, it is actually. It's so that would have been the contact that Paul noticed in the background from the likes of Harry Conway and Joe Macaulay when he was lapping Joe McCauley in the Mercedes. So obviously the stewards have judged that Harry Conway was the guilty party in that. Of course, it's the responsibility of both the car being lapped and the car doing the lapping to make sure that there is no contact between either car. They each have equal responsibility in the in the operation, and of course Harry Conway in this part obviously not holding up his end of the deal.
Yeah, absolutely. With I mean, so much pressure happening in that three-way, four-way battle that he was involved in. That was a development that he probably just slight miscalculation on the GT4 car might not have been in the position that he wanted them to be, and it cost him a few seconds here. Pulled into the pits to kind of get that taken care of, and that 5 seconds will hold on to him. As he's down into 16th place, but he'll be pretty securely there with only Sundstrom behind him, who has got a lot of time to make up from the early lap 1 incident that Sundstrom was involved in.
Don't know if you just caught, but the race leader has entered the pit, so he's in the pits for his mandatory pit stop. So Ibrahimi now takes over the lead of the race.
Excellent development.
And of course, Ibrahimi will now be looking to put his foot down and try and set some qualifying laps in there. And of course, one of the things that we usually see with these races is when you have an open kind of ability to choose whatever you want for your pit stop. The only requirement is you take at least 1 litre of fuel. What they typically tend to do is go as long as possible on the fuel and obviously not take tyres. This being a 75-minute race, tyres are a bit more... you kind of need to manage them a bit more because obviously they will be going much further into their life cycle. The GT3s we know can do 75 minutes on their tyres. They do get a bit squirmy towards the end of a stint, but of course they are usually fine. The GT4s we still don't entirely know, and hopefully we will find out throughout the course of this race. We have just over 35 minutes to go. But of course, Samir Brahimi and Adrian Probst will now be looking to set some fast laps, maybe see if they can jump ahead of Mooney. By the time their mandatory pit stop comes around, they'll be hoping that Mooney gets caught in some traffic.
Yeah, absolutely. That's the strategy here. You have the pit strategy and where you come back out onto the track. You could get caught up in a bunch of GT4 traffic. So that is another strategy that they have to worry about. Hartkemper still here looking for some pace on 0, but that Lexus is holding true ahead of him, both of which have to take their mandatory pit stops as well, so we'll see how that battle shakes out. Jumping back over to Mooney, he pulled back out onto the track in 12th position, so looks like he does have a little bit of traffic to deal with, so we'll see what kind of pace he can get back out as the rest, currently the top 11 need to pull in for their pit stop as well, as we just a couple minutes ago crossed the halfway point of the race. The conversation's been on tires. We jumped into a 75-minute race. A lot of drivers not super confident with how the GT4 class especially is going to be handling that extra 15 minutes, which is so crucial to the life cycle of these tires. Most of them deciding that it's not worth the risk to burn through a new set and adding that crucial 30 seconds onto their pit time to that mandatory stop. So they're gonna try to push it, but that last 15 minutes I feel are gonna be just a little more loose than these drivers might be used to in their usual, as we see Hartkemper pull into the pit lane for his pit stop.
Yeah, so Hartkemper has judged that the Lexus is too difficult to pass on track. He's not getting any opportunities coming his way, so he's going to come into the pit lane, serve his mandatory pit stop, and hope that the Lexus gets caught up in some traffic. Deceivingly long pit lane here at Misano, it has to be said. It looks fairly short when you see it to begin with, but you have to remember that the run down to the exit of the pit lane is excruciatingly long.
Oh, it's painful, isn't it?
It's really painful. We see Hartkemper stopped. He's actually stopped for much longer than I would expect for just 1 litre of fuel. So this is going to be interesting to see what's going on here. The car has not gone up onto the jacks, so I would assume maybe it's damage that he's taking to be repaired, but obviously I don't see too much wrong with that car.
No, that's a good point. And don't really, and he's moved just as you moved the camera away there. So he's out. I think he's on his way out of the pits. But you're talking about Mooney coming back onto the track for his pit. He did hit a little bit of traffic, but now he's got a bit of clear run. There is some pace in those Audis. Watching Hartkemper and Ibrahimi, there is some pace to be had in those Audis. So a bit of clear air for both of those drivers. Which is why I think he took the pit stop there, Hartkemper. I think it was the right decision to give him a bit of space and to put some faster laps in.
The interesting image of a Bentley passing a GT4 Porsche. I mean, just the size difference. You can see it side by side there. The big boat of the Bentley trying to push past there with Frederick here, who still hasn't taken that pit stop, and we'll see how that shakes out for times. See the top 9 saw to take their pit stops here. But yeah, I mean, as was mentioned, I mean, the Audis seem to be holding incredible pace around Misano. They can just hold their lines, hold that pace, and that's so important when you have these really tight sectors that the likes of like the Porsche seem to be actually losing out on just a little bit. We saw some excellent moves come down the line from Hartkemper, able to really push the limits of the track and gain that kind of pace that is letting him get those overtakes in.
Not entirely sure if it's down to traffic or if it just happens to be the current pace that they are going at, but Samir Ibrahimi set a 134.4 on his previous lap, and Raymond Mooney a 133.6, 8 tenths quicker than Samir Ibrahimi at the moment. That could be down to traffic. We don't entirely know. We'll wait to see them update. And in fact, no, Samir Ibrahimi a 134.5 this time around, and similar pace for Adrian Probst as well. So he's come into the pit lane this time around. So this is interesting now. Samir Ibrahimi has stayed out, doesn't seem to have the pace. Raymond Mooney definitely seems to have the pace, and of course that's just going to make this race fall even further into his hands. Quick weather report for you, and track temperature update. It's 25 degrees track temp. It was 31 at the start of the race, but of course as we get later into the day you would expect the track to start cooling down. It was nice and sunny, and now we have a few clouds in the air with half an hour to go. No sign of rain just yet though.
I don't think the BBC weather team will be calling you anytime soon with that forecast, but but yeah, it looks like Ibrahimi has had a bit of traffic. I've just flicked to him, and behind him there's a small pack of GT4s with a GT3 mixed in there. So and I've been watching Mr. Mooney since he come from the pits, and he's had clear air. So let's see now in the next lap, perhaps if our lead man can get a bit of a better timing. But yeah, it could be back markers by the looks of things, but I could be completely wrong. So make of that as you will.
Absolutely, and we're currently following Hartkemper, who's looking at the back of Lindholm down in 11th position. Hartkemper's been holding some excellent pace. I wouldn't be too surprised if this is a shakeout here, but it's always interesting to after your pit stop, you get to race against some other drivers that have been on the track that you haven't been mixing up with, so you have to actually kind of adapt your strategy to how they are driving and see how your pace is against theirs. Hartkemper is going to be looking for the outside pass, looking for a lot of pace there. The Mercedes holding on to the inside corner, but again, look at how much he's pushing the edges of this track, able to maintain so much momentum here. Even with Lindholm on the defensive, Hartkemper can just use the outer limits of the track and maintain that momentum, cut that last corner a little sharper, and is going to be able to hold that pace. Is actually going to be outpacing the Mercedes by just a little bit across the kinks on the back straight. They're going to be looking for the inside, and Mercedes going to tuck back in for the defensive into this big corner here. Hartkemper holding on to the back of him, and I believe this is just going to shake out to whoever makes a mistake here. Harkemper showing, I mean, just a lot of pace, but Lindholm being defensive and trying to hold him back a little bit.
And of course, this has been an interesting development because Harkemper pitted early to try and jump Stefan Zero, and I don't think he was expecting the Mercedes of Lindholm to come out in front of it. Of course, Lindholm pitted really early on into the race, so the Mercedes making an advantage of pitting early and obviously not getting involved in any of the battles that Harkemper obviously did get involved in with the likes of Martin Schumacher, but he's going to dive up the inside now of the Mercedes. The Mercedes will hold the inside line coming onto the first of the back straights, but the Audi goes very, very wide, maybe kind of, you know, exceeding track limits on there, and he will come in. Oh, and he'll actually go very, very wide again. Not entirely sure if that's on purpose to let the Mercedes back through. Maybe judging that he took that position illegally, but of course he has now given the position back to the 11 through fault or on purpose. We do not entirely know, as Samir Ibrahimi now makes his way past these two as well.
Yeah, Lindholm kind of taking that position back. I mean, that could have just been Harkemper just pushing it a little too far. You know, he's been really pushing the envelope and might have just stepped over that line. Got some sand on those tires and lost it into the next corner. But I mean, yeah, I mean, giving back the position isn't out of the question. You know, it's, you know, pushing that wide and taking the position might not have sat right with him. So he tucked back in behind Lindholm, who is putting up still a impressive defense, holding Harkemper in place here as they're going to be catching up into some back traffic here ahead of them. And we'll see how that
not far behind either, is he? Like he's catching this battle too. So
that is actually an excellent observation. That's Frederick in the back there, in that 815 Bentley, looking to take a look at this particular battle and see with Lindholm holding Harkemper in place, kind of keeping him in check, if you will. Frederick looking for an opportunity to maybe catch up to them and see if he can make something happen. Kind of a repeat of what Harry Conway was able to pull with two kind of going side by side. He's actually going to go a huge dive on the outside to get that ground. It looked like he had the pace. He took the late break and is going to go side by side. This is Frederick in the back here, trying to get past him, still forcing Lindholm very wide. Is actually going to go also side by side. Harkemper's going to go cut loose and is going to actually completely lose it. Harkemper has just burned through his back tires right now, and that's going to be a huge blow to him, losing out in that battle in that corner, and that battle is over now. Jumping into our instant replay, excellent stuff here. Lots of pressure coming in from Lindholm, was pushed very wide, and I would say Harkemper kind of just got overly confident trying to hold onto that pace and just completely lost it on his own from the pressure. And luckily it was a bit of a clean break, no contacts, but that is going to be a huge blow to Harkemper. Has lost a lot of time in that little mistake there.
While you're watching that replay, Mr. Mooney has got for a few more back markers of the GT4s. He's currently 26 seconds behind Porsche number 3 of Takamaki. And he's currently finds himself in 5th position, and looking at the lap times, it's pretty similar to what our current lead man is doing. So yeah, it's going to be interesting how this shakes out when Ibrahimi goes in for his pits. And also I'd like to point out that Lebrec, is it, in the Lamborghini car number 67, is currently in 2nd position because he hasn't taken his pit stop yet. So the top 4 are yet to stop.
Yeah, and one of the things just thinking about there, seeing the Harkemper, you know, spin, is one of the things I was thinking, you know, this race being slightly longer, we have 23.5 minutes left on the clock. We're getting extremely close to the 60-minute mark into the race, and I'm starting to wonder, has Harkemper overdriven those tyres? Are those tyres shot to pieces? Because when he came into the pit lane, we did not see the Audi go up on its jacks, so that would kind of indicate to me that he has not taken fresh tyres. Has he gone through the best of those tyres? Is he now starting to feel the pain of those tyres which are, you know, completely shot to pieces, and he's got to last another 23 minutes on those tyres now?
Yeah, that strategy really shaken out now, where, you know, not taking tires and costing him that 30 seconds. But I mean, he just lost a solid, 8 to 10 there when he spun out in that corner. So I mean, he's already lost that time and now has to deal with that for the next 22 minutes. So that is going to be a huge blow to him, and now he's got to really think about that for the next race and see maybe it's worth it taking the tires if he's going to be pushing the edges of the track that much. The Audi can kind of cook through those back tires, especially if he's putting so much pressure and ending up in all these battles.
Yeah, an interesting theory. I mean, I would imagine that the rest of them haven't pitted for tyres either. So, but obviously each car has its different behaviours. But I would just like to highlight that Prost has come out behind Mr. Mooney within a second behind him currently. So after his pit stop, so that's interesting. That we've currently got, what was originally first and third, very close as Mr. Mooney goes very, very wide as I'm watching him at the moment, and Prost is right behind him at the moment and putting a lot of pressure on him. So an interesting battle developing here, potentially for the lead of the race.
Yeah, the two Porsches here, Prost kind of try to go for the outside corner, definitely holding a lot of pace over Mooney. This is a lot of pace Prost is pulling out of that Porsche. This is a mirror battle with the two Porsches in the GT3 class. Shaken out here. Prost jumped back in line, but is fighting for a lot of pace here, and I feel like both of them are just cutting just a little more loose. I've seen a lot of cars kind of hit that sand trap right there, actually, as they're trying to push to the outer limits of the track. We saw a few drive-thrus come through in the GT4 class. The GT4 class used to taking the curbs a lot more than the GT3s, and pushing those limits just a little too far. But this is definitely an interesting development that Prost's going to go for another later braking point, try to grab some ground, but Mooney just holding that pace ahead of him, catching up to some traffic ahead of them on the back straight here.
Yes, the traffic could play an important role, especially in this part, which is quite a fast corners of the circuit, as you'll see that a car's just cleared a drive-through, but I didn't catch the number there. And as the Mercedes of the GT4 gets out of the way, and Prost is right. Oh, and he gives him a love tap and spins Mooney round. That's unfortunate.
Now this is significant though for the lead of the race.
Yes, it is.
Prost has spun Mooney around. He hasn't decided. He has stayed to make sure that he doesn't take the position. So good sportsmanship-like behaviour there from Prost to obviously not want to take that position and say, look, that's my bad. You can make sure you can keep the position. But of course, this has now fallen into Samir Ibrahimi's hands. He still hasn't pitted yet. We were saying that Mooney was gaining time on him. He's just lost a massive chunk of time. He's still under pressure from Prost as well. This is starting to fall into the hands of Samir Ibrahimi, who has managed to avoid all of these shenanigans going on between the two Porsches.
Yeah, and that strategy is really holding out for him. Still hasn't taken that mandatory pit stop along with Lebrecht and Takamaki in the two Lamborghinis. So going for the late pit but staying out of pressure is what is going to give them the win, because as we've seen, the battles can get very scrappy at Misano here.
And he's not long ago lapped Frederic as well. So he's lapping, some of the GT3 cars as he's keeping. But when I looked a couple of laps ago, the pace was around same for Mooney and for Ibrahimi. So there wasn't really much in between them. The last fastest laps are like 1:34.3s when I both looked. So it was literally small hundreds of a second, big differences. So, or maybe even tenths even. So yeah, and like you say, Ryan, that's a big moment there for the lead of the race when those two came together.
Yeah, the Lexus of Stefan Zero was the opportunist in that as well. He managed to jump both of the Porsches, so the Lexus potentially putting itself on the podium here, because of course he does know that these two cars were theoretically racing for the race win, or at least a podium spot. So Stefan Zero has put himself in a rather good position as well now, the number 42 Lexus. Of course, that's what it is. It's about playing the long game, taking opportunities when they come your way. And someone else who's actually done fairly well, Martin Schumacher, who, by the way, had been passed by both Friedrich, Ripper, Lindholm and Hartkemper earlier on in the race. He's now ahead of all of them in 7th place. So he's made the most of opportunities that have come his way as well.
It's funny how sometimes things just sort of unfold as race goes on. You know, like these little bits and pieces. The story isn't over until it's over. You know, there's always going to be sub stories, little mini battles that go on, little instances that go on, especially with a multi-class event like this, where you've got slower cars amongst the fastest cars. As we look at Justin Hartkemper in the Audi 110, closing down Mr. Lindholm in the AMG Mercedes car number 336.
And of course, this is round 2 of this battle, because of course it was right here, actually, where Hartkemper got past the Mercedes and then of course spun out, and that allowed Lindholm to get back through. So of course Hartkemper now has to make his way back past the Mercedes that was kind of being a bit of a thorn in his side for quite a few laps, and is going to continue to be so for a few more as well, it seems. And of course, the more Hartkemper pushes these tyres, the longer he stays in the dirty air of the Mercedes as Lindholm loses it. Or was there contact there as Hartkemper slows down?
I think it was just a slight bit of contact. I think Hartkemper paused just to make sure. You know, he wants to make sure that it's a clean pass. So excellent sportsmanship there from Hartkemper, who's, I mean, showing the pace, but Lindholm is just playing an amazing defensive game. Kind of a surprise hit in the last little bit of this race, about 16 minutes to go now. Lindholm just holding Hartkemper in place and not letting him through. When he did let him through, Hartkemper pretty much spun right after that. So I mean, like, that's just incredible defense being put on. We're jumping back over to Probst, who's looking at the back of Mooney still. Actually, that was Zero out in the sand back there in the distance. That is him losing it just a little bit. I didn't catch what happened. But yeah, Zero, who has had a pretty quiet race in that 42 Lexus, just lost out that position. So that is going to be Probst and Mooney taking back their respective positions from before their incident.
Yeah, and of course that changes up the podium position orders as well. I did say that Stefan Zero had done so well to avoid the incident between the two Porsches, make up on places, get himself into the podium positions, but of course, well, that's out the window now unless these two have a bit of a tingle and dance again. But yeah, unfortunate there for the Lexus. Maybe just tyres going off a bit too much. I mean, we've reached the 60-minute mark of the race, 15 minutes left to go. If this is the point where the tyres start to drop off, this is where we're going to see the most mistakes. Hartkemper still half a second behind Lindholm, Probst half a second behind Mooney. But Probst has received a 5-second penalty, and of course that will be for the contact that he had with Mooney earlier on in the race. Now, the reason as to why he'll have received a penalty for that, as he gets past the 58 Ginetta, is because of the fact that Mooney lost a position due to the accident. Of course, Stefan Zero managed to get past both Porsches, but of course Stefan Zero is now behind the Porsches again, so that's just unfortunate for Probst, really.
Yeah, that's an interesting call from the Stewart's team. I mean, by the rules for the race, I mean, yeah, it did cost Mooney a position, so the 5 seconds is there. But now that Stefan Zero, pretty much right before that penalty was posted, lost control and lost the position anyway. That's going to be a interesting bit here, actually, with another drive-through hitting for car number 24, pushing track limits. That's Benny Heelman in that 24 picked up another drive-through for track limits. So I mean, the track limits being a pretty punishing storyteller here at Misano. Cars trying to push the outer limits as the tires are starting to turn on them just a little bit, kicking out into some sand, even worse. You know, so that's gonna be causing a few game sim given penalties here.
So I don't know if you noticed, but Ibrahimi has pitted now. He finds himself in currently second position. But while you were talking, I was looking to see what happened to our sixth place man, Mr. Zero, in the Lexus car number 42. he just seemed to not brake for the corner. He just seemed to run wide. I don't know if he had like a technical hit to that particular moment, but he just seemed to not, didn't lose, didn't spin, just didn't seem to slow down for the corner.
Yeah, an interesting development here. Jumping back to James Parker, who is, if I'm not mistaken, still leading the GT4 pack here. The four of the top 5 in the GT4 class have still not taken their mandatory pit stop. So pit stops will still shake them up quite a bit, and that would put Kadili in something of a lead here in the GT4 class, but it looks like there's a lot of space between Parker, Octane, and the rest of the group. So I don't know if that's actually going to change up the order. James Parker having an incredible amount of pace this entire race in the GT4 class in that 44 Cayman Porsche. So I think that is looking pretty secure even with that pit stop.
Yeah, definitely. He's found a bit of pace in the latter part. I mean, Octane was all over the back of him as the start of the race, as we saw on the stream earlier on. But yeah, I've been watching that. It's kind of there's not been anything as we're watching from the back of Mr. Mooney coming in 4th position, Raymond Mooney for Dynamic Motorsport, as Mr. Prost was trying to make a move originally on the outside, then tried to dart on the inside, but Mooney there in car number 11 is keeping him at bay. But Prost seems to have a bit more pace in the latter stages of this race even, and we're 11 minutes on the clock, but he also seems a bit eager, and as we saw a couple of laps ago, gave him a bit of a love tap and spun him round. So you know, it is hard when you feel like you've got a bit more pace and then the car in front. It is trying to remain calm, cool and collected, and not do anything like he did before, and just make a bit of a lunge and make them both lose, 10 or so seconds.
Mooney definitely struggling with that Porsche. We saw him lose the back end a bit whilst we were on board there, but of course he did manage to keep it together. And of course that will play into Probst's hands. The problem that Probst has is that even if he gets past Mooney, he has that 5-second penalty to deal with. So of course he'll have to stretch a gap of 5 seconds to finish ahead of the number 11 Porsche anyways. The 2 Lamborghinis in 1st and 3rd yet to pit, but of course Ossie Takamaki will not be worrying the podium places. Ismail Lebrec may still have something to say about it though, because he is leading at the moment, hasn't pitted, and of course as the Porsches now dive out of the way for Svensson's Alpine, that car has been involved in quite a few moments in this race so far regarding GT3 cars lapping them, but you can see the slight twitches that Mooney is getting from that Porsche at the moment. That Porsche is not sitting comfortable, probably some rear end damage from the contact that he had, and you can see it there again, the car slightly losing it, but Probst as well, maybe not anticipating Mooney to have a slight moment in the car. His car looking a bit unstable as well. Tyres obviously playing a massive part here if these guys haven't taken a mandatory tyre stop, but Samir Ibrahimi looks to be away and well at the front of the field.
It looks like I might, sound like I come on to do a stream and know what I'm talking about and predict the winner of the race. But yeah, no, it just seems that Prost seems to have a bit more confidence in the car right now. So regarding the 5 seconds, I think if he can make the move on Mooney, I think he'll gain those 5 seconds. Not sure if it's, like you say, any particular damage in the car, because it seems to be in the low coming out of the slow corners where the grip is, and it just kind of show you same cars but different behaviors, and that could be down to driving styles and maybe without taking tires, Prost potentially didn't push as hard in the first half of the race and has kept those tires a little bit more alive for the latter stages perhaps.
Yeah, Probst really trying to push a lot into the back of Mooney. He's, as was said, he's holding onto the pace, but I mean he's trying to be just a little too aggressive maybe into these corners, led to that contact that cost them a lot of time. But he wants it to be a clean pass. The professionalism is really big here. And if he does get past him, even with a little bit more pace, I mean, with only 7 minutes to go, I mean, I just don't think he can get a 5-second gap on him to keep that distance. So it'd be interesting to see what Probst decides to do at this point. Maybe he just holds on to the position that he's got, takes the hit, and tries to hold on to that pace. We're jumping back over.
In the pits. Sorry, the third place man's now in the pits, Takamaki. So this will be interesting to see where he comes out into the fold.
Yeah, absolutely. We're currently riding on board with Lemke. Actually, the Mercedes getting Lindholm flying into the sand there. Just looked like he missed his braking point by quite a big margin there. But yeah, just gonna quite pass, just get past them in that situation. But yeah, I mean, just looked like he just kind of went straight. We're gonna see the instant replay here in just a moment. But I mean, there wasn't a whole lot of pressure from behind. And just looked like he, pushed the car actually. Well, I mean,
maybe some net code there.
Yeah, I think it might be because it looked like the Mercedes lifted up with the front two guys, and they just sort of came together very closely momentarily. So you might be right. It might be something latency or net code related.
Potentially here, Lindholm he's actually losing places. He's lost places out to Harry Conway and the likes of Martin Ulrich as well, and yeah, that Mercedes has problems. He's nursing it back to the pit lane, and unfortunately there must be damage on that car that has significantly hampered its performance. In fact, I can see the rear wing is slightly bent on the Mercedes, and the car does look to be veering to one side as well. He's going to pull into his pit stop, and that looks like any chance of a good result done for him. And we switch back now to Probst and Mooney. And still half a second between these guys. Takamaki has petered out into 5th place, but of course that 5-second penalty means that Stefan Zero will jump ahead of him before the end of the race, unless Takamaki can increase that gap. Lebrec has pitted. He is coming out, and in fact, Ismail Lebrec, he's one of the big winners in the pit stops. The 67 Lamborghini, the orange FFF Racing Team Lamborghini, is out in 2nd. What a masterclass play by Ismail Lebrec to leave it so late. 5 minutes and 30 seconds remaining. He's in 2nd, and he's got a comfortable gap.
Wow. Didn't see that coming.
Absolutely big jump from him. I was worried about that pit stop, how much that was going to affect him, but with Mooney and Probst have been neck and neck. That little contact that they had cost them that very key amount of time. Lebrec able to jump back into 2nd place even after the pit stop, and with only 5 minutes to go, that is looking like a pretty solid podium with Ibrahimi in the lead currently, and Lebrec jumping out at a time that he is very happy with. So that's going to be a huge development on the podium here. Jumping back on board with Lebrec actually, who has a lot of space between him. He's not caught up in a lot. Actually, he's getting a little too close to a GT4 car there. I thought he was going to give him a love tap then, if I'm being honest. I think
that came very close to being a little moment. But this is the thing, like I've seen, while the stream's been going on, I saw a moment with the race leader and a GT4, and I can't remember which car was behind him at the time. I think it might have been Frederick, because at that point Ibrahimi hadn't pitted, but there was nearly a coming together of those three into the final corner. So it's so close all the time, and that there I just had a code brown moment for Lebrec. I thought that was going to be a moment.
So James Parker, the lead GT4, into the pit lane. He'll serve his mandatory pit stop now. Bruno Cadili, the 2nd place GT4 in the Aston Martin. Don't think James Parker will be taking tyres with 3 minutes and 30 seconds to go, so it seems that the Porsche has done well on its tyres, and James Parker will be out ahead of Bruno Cadili. Cadili does not have the time to catch back up to the likes of the Porsche. I think the Porsche is already exiting the pit lane. Yes, it is. So, of course, James Parker will be looking to take the win here at Misano for the GT4 class. Bruno Cadili will have to settle for a 2nd place, and Joe McCauley, in fact, is in 3rd for the GT4s at the moment. Nicholas Rage still yet to pit.
Got an idea what happened to Schumacher, because he's down currently in 18th position after making a really good show of it early on in the race.
He is actually. It's an interesting point. In fact, his last lap was a 2:08.1, so that indicates to me that he's been in the pit lane again.
Right.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, could be taking up maybe just a little bit of repairs, or maybe he lost a little bit of ground. I did not catch it myself.
No, neither did I. Yeah, I've only just spotted it. So
Could
But yeah,
be...
Schumacher, had a really tough race. A lot of pressure holding people down behind him. To see him down this low based on the pace that he was holding is pretty impressive. There must have been a bit of a mistake or something like that. Jumping back over to the battle between Mooney and Probst. Actually, Probst is going to be grabbing a lot of ground here, trying to pass the 11. Actually, oh no, that's Probst jumping ahead.
yeah, that's a great move.
Mooney making a mistake.
Yeah, and I thought there was going to be contact in the second part of that, but that was great driving for both drivers. Gotta say, unbelievable.
Yeah, absolutely. Probst grabbing that ground that he's been looking for. Obviously still has to deal with that 5-second penalty, and that's going to put him behind him. But he did want to at least get past him, for that feeling. Actually, that's Mooney losing a lot of ground right there, getting cut up there. So this is Probst actually pulling away, and with, just not enough time. I would say, even with a mistake like that, unless Mooney throws it off the course. This is Probst trying to grab as much ground as he can. He's going to be pushing into the last couple of laps here. Ibrahimi should be crossing into his final lap in just a moment here, but I don't think he has the time to make this gap happen, even if Mooney did make that mistake just there.
I was thinking the exact same thing, Nick, but of course if Mooney's going to keep making mistakes like these, we saw his car being so nervous and twitchy when he was defending, and of course, Probst looks so much more comfortable at the moment. If Mooney keeps making mistakes like he has done in the last few laps, I think Probst, he might finish on the podium still.
Yeah, it's possible. If the rear end of that car is giving him that kind of trouble, it's possible he could get a bit more time, because he gained nearly about 1.5 seconds already. So all he needs is another 1.5 seconds. Obviously double that would be great, and that would be job done for him. But yeah, it's not over yet. It's still possible as we look at the race leader on the final lap, Ibrahimi.
Ibrahimi has had an excellent race in that Audi. Again, the Audi is holding a lot of great pace around Misano today, with Lebrec quite a little ways behind him, but very securely in second place. Lebrec also had a very excellent race, kind of kept his nose clean and timed that pit stop just excellently in the last little bit here. Ibrahimi crossing over into the last lap. So really the battle for third place here is what is raging, but just Probst again just not quite having the time to fight that gap off, deal with that 5-second penalty, which was honestly a tough blow to him. He tried to make a clean pass and it didn't work out for him, and that's going to be Mooney tucking into third place as they both cross the finish line pretty close to each other. So excellent race from both of them. Coming across the line is Frederick holding on to 5th place, as Takamaki had also that 5-second penalty pushing him down the list. 6th place being 0 in that Lexus. Lost a lot of ground in that last few laps there, throwing into the sand trap. A big blow to him, but holding on to 6th place is nothing to laugh about at all. Takamaki holding on to 7th place as the rest are finishing out the top 10. Ripper coming across with Hart Kemper in 9th position, and it's looking like Lemke is going to finish out your top 10 in the GT3 class. Down in the GT4 class, Parker with a solid win in the GT4 class, with Kettley behind him, with McCooley taking 3rd place in the GT4 split. So all in all, a excellent race. Just as the clouds are rolling in, actually, I think if the race was a little longer, we would start seeing some rain on the track. So that was some excellent timing for the race to end for these drivers. maybe they'll see some rain later.
Can I just point out I got both of the race winners right? Just want to just point that out.
Paul Glover coming in and making the predictions happen. I was confident with Lebret holding on to second place. I was really happy with that, so I will stick with what I've got.
Yeah, well, Paul coming in with the hot predictions, and of course gets them right. Fair play, well deserved.
That's okay. Don't expect that every week. So
I was going to say we'll be expecting you to do the double again at Kyle Army in a week's time.
The pressure's on now, isn't it? So.
Dear, yeah, but what a fantastic race. I mean, it got a bit quiet throughout the middle of the race, but honestly, with multi-class racing, there's always action going on in and around the field, and of course, it was really, really nice to see these cars out and about here at Misano. And of course, as I did say, we will be having the second race of the championship at Kyalami next week. That's going to be an early morning race, 6 a.m. in the morning, sunrise well and truly in effect. And of course, well, South Africa weather can always be a variable at Kyalami. We've seen it in the past with races there before. So, of course, that's going to be super interesting as well. But what do we have coming up for the rest of the week, I hear you ask? Well, tomorrow we have the Intercontinental GT Sprint Championship Pro Split. That's going to be live here on RCI TV YouTube channel. And the AMS will be live on the RCI_Racing Twitch channel. And, of course, both of those going live at 7:30 p.m. BST. So do make sure to join us then on Saturday. It's the big one, the one we've been building up to, the one we've all been looking forward to. It's the RCI 6 Hours of Barcelona. You can check out the race program that was revealed last night. That's in the 6 Hour info channel, and of course it will be in the link in the description of the 6 hour stream as well. We'll also have a giveaway going on during that stream. Prizes for drivers, viewers alike, and of course one grand prize as well. You can find out how to sign up for the giveaways as well in the Discord or on the day of the race. And of course we will be live streaming the full 6 hours with 2 different teams to make sure that we cover as much action as possible. Next Monday will be the return of the GT4 Championship. They'll be at Zandvoort. And then, of course, in a week's time, we'll be back here for the multi-class GT series at Kyalami. So, plenty of stuff going on around RCI. There's always going to be something to watch. And, of course, we do have the Maserati Cup at the Nürburgring coming up later on in the month, or later on in August, sorry. And also, actually, in the race program, you might find a teaser as to what our next endurance race might be. It will be 12 hours long, I can tell you that, but I'll leave it up to you to find out where exactly it is. And I have to say, I don't think the track will disappoint you. Having said that, thank you very much to both Nick Setnick and Paul Glover for joining me here today. It's been an absolute privilege to have both of you in the comm box with me. And I look forward to having both of you back here with me very, very soon for the second race of the season at Kyalami. And thank you everyone today for watching the race. Your support is always much appreciated. Give a like and subscribe if you think that what we do here is amazing and you want to continue supporting us. It really does help us out. So of course we do appreciate all of that. But apart from that, have a wonderful rest of your evening.